According to U.S. Census data, every day until the year 2030, 10,000 U.S. citizens will be turning age 60. Retirement communities, like that here at Linden Ponds, are working hard to help and improve the quality of lives of this growing segment. I recently had the pleasure of sitting down with a dynamic couple from Hingham, engineers by background, who are working to make a contribution to the quality of lives, particularly for those who suffer from Parkinson's. It was a fascinating conversation, and I invite you to listen in. Hello, how are you?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Diana, Alan, Arseneau. These are our guests on Harbor Interests. I'm so glad that you could join us.
Thank you for having us. This is fun.
Tell us a little bit about yourselves. I understand, Alan, you're from Massachusetts, and Diana, you're from Connecticut.
Yes.
Who wants to go first?
Alan, you go ahead.
We'd love to. So I'm originally from Boston. I grew up in a large single-parent family in Brighton. The 6 boys in my family. For us, college wasn't really a thing. And so I was very fortunate to be very hardworking, and I had a big brother, as part of the Big Brother, Big Sister organization. And I found myself into college. I went to Northeastern, did a degree in chemical engineering, did a few years of biology and biochemistry, and ended up working as an engineer. Ultimately, I went to Stanford for an MBA, which was pretty exciting because, in a world where no one goes to college, going to Stanford Business School is pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
So it was fun.
Diana, how about you?
Yeah, I grew up in Connecticut. I'm from a family of 4. I have a twin brother and an older sister and a younger sister. I was the first person from my public high school to go to Harvard, where I studied chemistry. And then I worked in the pharmaceutical industry. And Alan and I got married about 3 years ago.
How did you meet?
We met in the most romantic of places, at a healthcare pharmaceutical pricing conference.
Okay.
A friend of Alan's was running the conference and wanted some extra warm bodies, and I was there for work.
And I was there to meet someone. I was there looking for girls, for women, and so I found someone.
Just like a great choice, that's for sure. Now, in this work that you're doing, and this is what I'd like to know a little bit more about your backgrounds from an educational standpoint. Biochemical engineering, and you are as chemistry. So you must have some great conversations in the kitchen when it comes to cooking. Who does most of the cooking in the house?
I do the cooking and Alan eats it.
All right.
I do a lot of cleaning.
You do a lot of the cleaning, all right. Tell me about your early influences. Alan, you mentioned that you were involved in Big Brother's program. And as I understand it, are you also a big brother today to someone?
I am. I've been matched now for, I'm approaching 3 years, I believe. But I've had my big brother for going on 31 years. And I talk to my big probably every week, maybe every other week. I talk to my little all the time. He's in Quincy. My big brother's in Marlboro. Influences for me. I grew up in a very poor, large family. We were on welfare and government assistance. I grew up in a world that was, on one hand, it was kind of a mean, gang-filled, violence-filled world. Other side, it was a world where there were people always willing to help or trying to help. like Christmases. We got a lot of gifts from churches and from Globe Santas, and I had my big brother, and I had different teachers who tried to really influence me in a very positive way. And so for me, growing up, I've always been very inspired to make a difference in the world, because so many people have tried to make a difference in my world. And a lot of my friends, a lot of my counterparts, they didn't go to college. I mean, they went to jail or they got killed in some incidents or something. And so for me, going to college was very eye-opening. And I feel very indebted to maybe to society as a whole for giving me so many chances and opportunities to step outside of not just my comfort zone, but to step outside of the world that I knew and to do something bigger and more exciting and try to have a bigger impact. So I'm very intrinsically motivated to make the world better.
What I would call like a game changer. You've had the kind of experiences where you see where change needs to happen, and you've been able to channel your energies in a positive way to make those changes take place. And that's a rare quality in people. That's something you can't buy, and that's not even much that you can sort of engineer. It's either innate, I think, somewhat, at least based on one's environmental influences. Before you started your company, and we'll talk about your company, Jamber, in a minute, what were you doing, respectively?
Yeah, so I was working in the pharmaceutical industry, and I was working on developing a drug for leukemia. And I worked in the clinical space and also in business development. And then I've always had this interest in entrepreneurship, but I never ever thought I was going to make the leap. But I ended up working for a small electronic medical record company, which was my first dabble into entrepreneurship. And then Alan and I got together and we ended up making the leap that way.
And Alan, what were you doing?
I worked as a pharmaceutical process engineer. I worked as a medical device engineer in Europe. And then I went to Stanford, got my MBA. I worked for Andre Agassi and Stephanie Graf doing business development and some really exciting stuff with those guys. And then after the economic crash, I did healthcare consulting, and then I did manufacturing operations, helping entrepreneurs get stuff made. So those are our backgrounds. And both Diana and I have worked in medical devices. We've worked in pharmaceutics. We've been in healthcare, nutrition consulting, and we're both very motivated to add value to people's lives, to the world. And it was very frustrating when you work for like an Eli Lilly or various other companies, that you go to those companies dreaming that you're going to really make a difference and you're going to save someone's life. The reality is the company is profit driven and there's immense amounts of regulation and lead times are like 10, 15 years. And so you go there, and of course the failure rate is like 90%. So you go there thinking you're going to really make a difference, and it's hard to make a difference. 5 years ago, we were having lunch with my grandfather, who, so like my childhood was kind of tough, right? And so I was on my own at 16 years old, living between my friend Jose's house as well as my grandparents' house, or on their porch. And so I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. My grandfather was my hero. He was 82nd Airborne Army Ranger during the Korean War. He was a really tough guy. They called him Hercules. And so we were having lunch with him in his senior living community. And he was struggling with a cup of water. And me being the jokester, I was like, geez, Pop, you're having trouble with a cup of water there. How do you drink coffee? And he was like, Alan, do yourself a favor. Don't get old. He's like, my hand hurts, my wrist hurts, my elbow hurts. Everything hurts. And we looked around the room. We saw a lot of older women, and they were all struggling, shaking to drink. And I was holding my cup at the time. And I was like, it does hurt. And then I was thinking, it always hurts. I just ignore it. And we went home that night. Diana was taking a cup out of the microwave. And she said, I'm always afraid I'm going to spill the cup on, the hot liquid on me. And so we started thinking that we have bioengineering, manufacturing, science backgrounds.
Yes.
Like, let's just make a cup for my grandfather. And that was the moments where we're like, let's just make a mug for him. And so we wanted to make one cup to make my grandfather's life easier. And that just turned into this 2.5 year snowball of like nonstop bioengineering, design, analyses. We created the medical advisory team that includes a woman who's a professor at Boston University, who's the nation's leading occupational therapist and the former president of the American Occupational Therapy Association. So we got some of the best people to be a part of Jamber. And over the 2.5 years, we bioengineered a coffee mug that is literally the world's most comfortable coffee mug. And it results in people drinking more liquid, people being more hydrated, people having less pain, people spilling less often. And the reason that there are those benefits is because we spent so much time analyzing the biomechanics of how you pick up something and hold it and move, and what happens biomechanically and anatomically when you're holding onto something. The way this mug works, when you hold the Jamber mug, it puts your hands in an anatomically neutral position, which is called functional rest. And functional rest means that the ligaments and tendons that run from here to my elbow are at rest, which means there's little or no strain, which translates to little or less pain. The shape that my hand is in is also an optimal power grip. So there's pinch grip, there's round grip, there's power grip. A power grip is the easiest grip to hold on to. It results in the most gripping force, and this has been optimized for human hands. We realized that when people put cups down, spills occur when you move your hand towards you, because your finger stays in the handle, or it sticks because of condensation or sticky coffee, and so we put a stabilizing nub. It turns out that when you put this nub here, if you look at like the 360 degrees around the cup, these angles and these angles here, this cup will not spill. And so we've had customers, again, we get emails 7 days a week, which is what motivates us to move forward. And one person recently wrote us saying that her husband always spills. He has Parkinson's, always spills coffee or any liquid. And it's hard to pick up, and if it's hot, it's a problem. Since he's had a Jamber mug, he hasn't spilled not once. And it's because we really tried to engineer the stability.
I would also add that the handle kickstand is a favorite for anyone who's at their computer all day long. We have a lot of 20-somethings, 30-somethings who are like, I just love the handle kickstand because I'm typing away and I'm not worried about spilling my cup of coffee all over my laptop.
And people often ask us about this cutout. And we realize that as you age, your hands change. And so what changes is these right here. These are called your metacarpal phalangeal joints. And like golfers will complain that their swing changes as they get older. This changes the shape of your grip. And so we put the cutouts in, which will receive your swelling metacarpal phalangeal joints so that the shape of your grip is the same if you're 5 or 105. And so, the bioengineering principles make this just a simple coffee mug that just works so much better than any mug that has ever been designed.
How was it that something as simple as a cup, a mug, which has been around for at least
5,000 years.
Around like 5,000 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that you've designed it in such a way that it's revolutionary? Why hasn't someone else thought of this? Or what I'm not the first person to say that to you, am I?
No, and usually a lot of our reactions were, I can't believe no one has done this before. Right. And I think a lot of it has to do with first off, we use 3D printing for rapid prototyping and for mold making. And so the way that the Jamber handle is actually designed is with mathematical equations, which you couldn't actually manufacture without our 3D printing technology, because in the past, everything had to be done by hand. And so we use, like I said before, we use 3D printing. So that enables us to manufacture this. But I think just in general, products aren't always very thoughtfully designed. And with Jamber, we recognize this need for a better coffee mug, which is something very simple, but it's also something very impactful because it's something you use all day long and translates into so many different aspects of your life. We hear from our customers literally 7 days a week about how much Jamber is improving their lives. And we hear from our customers that, you know, they can never go back to the old coffee mug they used to be using before, and they actually drink everything, all liquids. It's not just coffee, it's water, tea, yes, everything all day long. And I think that we've taken a little bit of a different approach to product design. It's kind of bioengineering meets beauty, where we come from this science background, so we want to make something that's very functionally excellent, and then we also want to make something that's beautiful and is a piece that you would love to display and use all day long.
So, given this work that you're doing, how does that make you feel? At the end of the day, a long day, maybe it's one of those days that's frustrating. What gets you back in the saddle, as I say, the next day and going back at it again? And how many times did you try to build this? How many copies pre-existed the final form?
Well over 100 iterations. I might even say hundreds.
Were you close to wanting to give up and just say, forget it, Pops, we'll hold your hand while you're drinking or something?
It was, so from the early prototypes, like even from like our first, probably our third or fourth prototype, we brought it to my grandfather, we brought it to his senior living community, which is a benchmark community. And the reaction that people gave us from the beginning was amazing. From the very beginning, my grandfather picked up, it was a big, clunky, ugly cup. It was like Fred Flintstone had made it. It was one of our early prototypes. And he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so then we're like, you're just saying that, Pop, because you're my Pop. And we gave it to one of the executive directors, and we got a purchase order from a Cambridge community from an early crappy prototype, where they wanted to buy like 1,000 cups. And so it was from the very beginnings, we got some really positive feedback. 2.5 years is a long time to design something. And it's not that we're perfectionists, but our dream has always been to change the world and to really make life better for people. And we started realizing that if we just tweak it a little bit more, and if we just go further into the data, it'll be better. And then we build the medical advisory team. And then we have this, leading occupational therapist who, she said, this could be amazing. And she supported us and pushed us to go even deeper into the data. And so all of a sudden, we're years in, and we have a mug that does something very special that no mug in the history of mugs has ever done before. And like your question, in 5,000 years, it's never been done before. Right. Yeah, it's crazy, right? In 5,000 years, it's never been done before, in my opinion, because generally bioengineers and scientists aren't designing a coffee mug. Right, like our counterparts, Zuckerberg was in her class at Harvard. My class, the people that I went to school with, they were working for biotech companies, for, medical device companies, for consulting companies, for McKinsey. To go and try to make a mug for older people has not been, I think, the most
That's not very exciting.
Normal, exciting,
But what I'm going to say is that what is exciting and really rewarding is hearing from the people that helps the most. So I think hands down, across all ages, Jamber is appealing. We have 5-year-olds and 105-year-olds using Jamber. But when we hear from people, this is a godsend, that keeps us motivated. We have one customer who, she had like severe frostbite and she lost feeling in her hands, and then in a freak accident, a contractor took off a couple of her fingers. And she called us up, and she was like, I can't believe how much of a difference Jamber makes in my life. I was never able to hold anything before. But it's not just that extreme story. We have people who are purchasing Jamber for their husbands with Parkinson's, and they're like, this is making all the difference in the world. And now he doesn't spill in his shirt, and I don't have to do as much laundry. Or I get this for my child, and he's able to drink and feed himself. We have directors at senior living communities who told us that Jamber represents hope to them. And there's all these very strong emotions and results that really remind us that this is not a mug company. This is something about so much more. And Jamber brings so much meaning to so many other people. We continue to be driven to bring it out to as many people as we can.
What are your thoughts about what the packaging industry could do when you talk about human-centered, data-driven design?
Well, I think we need to take a better look at simple machines like levers. When we design products, we first think about what the product is supposed to do. And so in the case of a coffee mug, you bring it to your lips to hydrate. And so we wanted to make the act of hydrating easier. In the example of packaging, they're trying to seal it, for different reasons. Whether it's a seal for preserving it or for liquid evaporation, just easier ways to open it. Right now, products have been designed hundreds or thousands of years ago. Right? Processes have been designed hundreds or thousands of years ago. They haven't changed. I think it's time that as a people, as a society, we start using all the innovation and technology that we have at our fingertips, and we reinvent simple everyday products and processes.
I think it's also important to include user feedback. So that was a big part of our design process. And you need to use continual improvement, not to the point that you never get a product out, but you need to take in user feedback. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement in the packaging industry and everyday products that we use to make them work well with us. So we have to achieve the function that we want, but then also be focused on the user as well.
When you began to do your research, and let's just take Parkinson's, for example. You talked about you had a medical advisory staff. Did you actually have conversations with individuals who were Parkinson's sufferers beyond perhaps your grandfather? And what were your initial impressions, and how did you feel about that research?
We have had countless conversations with individuals and also directors who run senior living communities, and talked with them about how Jamber is impacting their residents. We actually had one resident who had to go to a memory care unit just for the added assistance in eating and drinking. And with Jamber, she was able to feed herself and go back to just the regular assisted living. And so that was a huge win. I think. So we
met this individual.
We met the head of that community. So a lot of our
dining director.
The dining director. So a lot of our conversations are over the phone. But we were lucky to go to a conference where we got to meet the dining director there, and she actually came up to us and was like, "Are you the Jamber folks?" She's like, "I have this resident, and you don't know how much this has transformed my community."
Now you've done some local things here. You're Hingham based.
We're a local Hingham family, and we love our community, and we want to engage the community in any way we can. And we have our office in Hull. We're in Carol Ann's. We donate mugs to the local councils on aging. We're always looking for ways to be involved because we believe in being community members. And we're growing Jamber to be a global company, but it starts at home. So I don't know. I'd like to just say that anyone who's out there in Hingham or Hull or a local community, come reach out to us. We love our community. We love to be involved. If there are other entrepreneurs in the community who are looking to get into this space, either the senior space or just the product design space, there are all kinds of resources, right? From the senior living perspective, there's Linden Ponds, there's Queen Anne's Nursing Home, there are the councils on aging, And there's also other companies locally who are creating amazing products. There's resources here. There's people here.
I think one of the other keys is to listen and to be observant. So I think you need to spend time observing others and really listening to what others have to say and absorbing that. You know, sometimes we forget how active the senior living population really is. So I know at Linden Ponds, there's a huge span of, you know, really active older adults. And I think there's a desire not to be seen as a senior necessarily needing a product like Jamber. And I think that people appreciate thoughtful design for products that meet an active lifestyle and also provide a functional benefit.
That's a good point. And I'm still looking for more examples of the kind of work that you're doing. You know, when you go into your local stores, particularly if you're shopping for a senior, an aging parent, and you ask yourself the question, can mom handle that? Can she pick that up? Can she open that? Is this the right size? Is this going to confuse her? Is this going to cause her to trip and fall? I mean, all of these types of things go, it's almost as if the things that we did as parents when you would get a toy for your child and you'd ask the question, all right, are these things gonna fall off? Is the child gonna swallow one of the eyeballs or something of that nature? You have to go through that similar analysis with a senior citizen.
And in the same way that, you know, your child might want like a big boy toy, I think that, you know, we don't want to have a product that's like for a senior. I think we just all want to have beautiful products that work really well and that are beautiful and that are just desirable, but that are not necessarily pigeonholed for these specific needs.
We have had a number of conversations with residents here and with children of residents here, you know, adult children. So we've had a number of conversations with Linden Ponds residents, as well as the children of Linden Ponds residents about what they as the residents or what their parents are looking for, and also what they think about Jamber mugs. And so we've had, you know, of course, customers, residents be customers, and the children be customers. We've had you know, other senior living communities like Queen Anne's across the street, you know, be an early customer and help us out, and use Jamber at every meal. Being here in Hingham and having Linden Ponds be in Hingham has been a phenomenal resource, because when we want to talk to someone who is in the senior living space, whether it's an administrator or a dining person or a resident, we have this enormous, amazing senior living community literally in our town. So that's been a wonderful benefit to being in Hingham, and a wonderful attribute.
So we use this human-centered, data-driven design approach to reinvent everyday consumer products. And it's about bioengineering meets beauty. And when we were coming up with a name for Jamber, we wanted something that was really fun and captured the feeling of using Jamber products. And in fact, the Jamber logo is two handles jambering together, because we feel that, you know, life is meant to be enjoyed with others, and we really enjoy that about building Jamber and having been so involved with all of those around us, and so thankful for our community as well, who's helped and encouraged us along the way. We're a two-man band right now, but it hasn't been a two-man band. It's been a whole community of people getting Jamber to where it has been.
Well, I want to commend you both, and if you will, we'll toast to your continued success in making a difference in people's lives.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being part of Harbor Interests.
Thank you.
Thank you.